artists. Today we are going to paint with water balloons. You may hear buzzing bees, you may hear motorcycles go by. That is because I am in my greenhouse today because this is kind of a messy project. It's also a lot of fun. It's what I call addictive because you want to keep doing it, but you get beautiful patterns and shapes when you do this, and it's just always kind of fun to see what you get. So let's get started. Today I am using 9 by 12 construction paper. You could also use regular computer cardstock. I wouldn't use just plain computer paper, or if you had some watercolor paper, but I'm going to use regular construction paper, and I'm using 9 by 12. You will want some paper plates. I have a couple of sizes of water balloons, and I also have just a regular size balloon for something a little bit later. So the basics are water balloons, paper, plates, and either tempera or acrylic paint. So I'm going to use some Blick Student Tempera and Crayola washable tempera for what I am going to show you. But then I am also going to demonstrate with acrylic paints that I have mixed up here in a little bit. Now, I'm going to start with something that you don't have to do. I mixed just a little bit of yellow and green. And for a project idea, which I will show you in a few minutes, is I am just going to paint some stems. And I'm going to paint a stem here in the middle and maybe put a couple of leaves on that stem. And then I'll paint a couple of shorter stems on the side and maybe paint a couple of leaves on those shorter stems, and then I'm going to set those off to the side and let them dry. Now this is just optional and kind of fun, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of leave those, let them dry a minute, and we're going to come back to those. So let's get started with the balloons and with the paint. So on the paper plate, you just need to put blobs of paint. So I am going to go, I like a magenta against yellow. So I'm going to start with my orange, and I'm just going to put a dab of orange, a blob of orange. I am going to, and I shook these before we got started, but I'm going to shake them just a little bit again, just in case. I'm going to put a blob of yellow. It didn't get right in the middle, but really, that is okay. And then I'm going to put a blob of magenta. Now the biggest thing I need to do is to make sure I pick up all 3 colors when I pick things up with my water balloon. So now I am simply going to take my water balloon, I'm going to start with a little one, I'm going to squish it in the paint, and then I am going to take that paint and squish it on my paper. And I get these really fun patterns, and I can just fill the space with color. Now if I decide, hey, I want a little bit more magenta, I can just put a little bit more magenta on there, or like, hey, I'd like some orange on this side, I can just put a little bit of orange on there. There is really no right or wrong. It's just if you want 3 colors in your picture, just make sure you get 3 colors on your balloon. Does it have to be a water balloon, Mrs. Fretz? No, it doesn't. You can use a regular balloon. Now, you can keep going, and you kind of get what looks like fireworks, but if you keep going and using the paint up, you end up with things that look a little bit more like pansies as you go. So you can just fill your paper with overlapping blobs. See, I got too much orange in that one. I need a little bit more magenta on my balloon. And I can just fill the page with blobs. I would fill the space, go out to the edges so I don't end up with a white frame. And when I'm done, I end up with something, I can end up with something like this. I start with blue and red on this one, or this, or the one I showed you at the very beginning. And notice I cropped these to kind of crop off that white edge so I don't have a white frame around my picture. All right, like I said, I really like these colors. You can play, we're gonna play with some other colors in a minute. But now I'm going to go back to that very first thing that we did. I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to put some little flowers on the tops of these. push down hard, get a little fatter one there. So now I've got some pretty little flowers. Now I'm going to do one other thing that is really fun to put on top of that. And that is, don't know quite where to sit my water balloon here. Just a second. There's a sink in the greenhouse, which makes it really nice. All right, I took a toilet paper roll and I cut down, a little over an inch maybe. And I cut down and then I pressed it down. And then I'm going to take that and kind of twirl it in here. I'm going to kind of press down on each little petal of my flower, and I'm going to look and make sure that all my petals kind of got some paint on them. Oh, look, those just got, I want some yellow on those, and they just kind of had orange. So I'm going to spread, and so I have some paint on each one of those, press them down, and then I'm going to take and put it over one of my flowers, and I'm going to press down on them again so that I make sure that I'm getting ink on the page, and then I end up with these kind of sunflowers. Now look, I need some more yellow here, so oh dear, that came out really fast. Oops. Live boo-boo. All right, here we go. But I can fix that. It's just fine. Okay, now I got lots of nice paint on there. And I'm gonna press down again on each one. Make sure that those are touching the surface because they have a tendency to curl up. Pull it up. And I have another sunflower. I made one more, and this one I cut up further and skinnier. I'm going to flip that around in here. Okay. I've got a little too much paint since I boo-booed. Okay. I'm spraying some dots, but that's okay too. I like those. Gives it some kind of texture on the paper. And I'm going to press those down. And I end up press those down so that, because they're curled up and the paint won't get it. Make sure that each one, the paint got on there. And I end up with a cute kind of sunflower picture. I did one here the other day, but I was going to put the stems on after. I thought, no, I don't like that because it'll look like I put the stems on after. So here I put the stems on first. And if you see some Eric Carle pictures, his kind of look like that. With the messed up dots and all. So that is something else you can do. Now I want to play with the acrylics for just a minute because you get this really cool effect with acrylics. You can get these things called cells. So one thing that Mrs. Fretz has been playing with over spring break and things is acrylic pours and acrylic acrylic pours and pulls. And if you can see right here, you get these little dots, you get these little cells. Sometimes these were temperas, and I was really thrilled with my temperas to get some of those cells in there. You can see some cells right here. They become much more noticeable with acrylics. Now, if you use acrylics, you kind of need to thin them. They're a little thick. So you can use a solution of Glue-All, Elmer's Glue-All, and some water, and you put about half the Elmer's glue to the same amount of acrylic paint, and then you kind of thin it till it's kind of like with water until it's kind of like chocolate syrup. So you kind of do that. So I wanted to play here with a little bit. We didn't play with blues, so let's use acrylics and play a little bit with blues. So I'm going to put a blue dot, dark blue, okay, red, and let's do some light blue and see what happens. Now for this one, I am going to go ahead and use a great big balloon because I wanted a great big dot, and I am going to go ahead and press that in. All right, and get beautiful, get a beautiful design, beautiful colors here. You can see a little bit of some cells kind of pulling up here. Let me do another one. Okay. Now, one way to get a few more cells is to add some silicone to your paint. Let me just add a couple more here. This isn't getting, okay. And then if I keep going with my balloons, see, I get things that look a little bit more like pansy. So I went back to the plain old water balloon. So let me do one more thing here, and that is, let's try it one more time, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of silicone to my paint. And so what they recommend you use is something they actually use to oil treadmills with. So I'm going to just add, let's just put a dot, see if this helps, a dot into the red, that was a little much, and a dot into the blue, and I'm going to do primary colors this time. I just added a dot into the blue. Don't know if you could see that, I think I was off camera. And let's do a dot into the yellow. And let's see if that helps and we get a few more of those cells. So again, I am going to, I like, in case the colors mix, I prefer purple over green. Mrs. Fretz, could I use 4 colors? You're using 3 colors. Of course you could. Of course you could. Okay, but I'm gonna get some orange here too, possibly if the colors mix. Okay, and so then I've got one clean balloon left. I'm going to use my one clean balloon I've got left. It's a little wet. Press down in there. Okay. Let's see if we get some cells here. Oh, starting to. And I'll show you what I mean. I need some more yellow. So I'm just going to add, yep, those cells are coming up nicely now. And the longer you wait, the more little cells you will get. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. And they're just kind of fun. I'm getting a little muddy now. I would probably start with a new, because I'm really getting the purples really starting to come through. So this is good to teach also just color mixing. That, look, I didn't put green in my, I didn't put any green on my colors, but look, I'm getting green. How did I get green? Well, see the yellow mixed with the blue. I didn't put any purple in my colors, but yet I am getting, I don't know if you can see some purples here. How did I get purples? Well, the red mixed with my blue. And so, can you see now those cells starting to come up? You're starting to get the little, what we call cells. And you get some of those. I was really happy I got some with the temperas, but you get even more of those as you mix a little bit of silicone in. So one more just thing to show you, let me wipe my hands, is something else you could do, and this was with the temperas again, is if you just got out a black crayon. I started with the black crayon. Just start basically with a straight line, and then get it a little thicker at the bottom. And then I tell the kids to do a tree, you just V off. And then I'm going to go a little lower, V off. And if you look at trees, they are kind of crooked, or where things, you end up with all these V's. And so kids could start with black crayon and end up with, put blooms on their branches and also do a tree. So lots of things you could do with this. I saw online somebody did a very hungry caterpillar and did the body with the greens and yellows and the head with reds. So you could do a very hungry caterpillar. So have fun, play with water balloons, and show me what you do. I love it when I get some of the portfolios. So hope you enjoyed this project, and I'd love to see what you did.